Oh, I'm sorry, I got lost in the book. Don't you? This is the thing that everybody wants to be doing, right? It's like, why do we have to live in this world of the internet when we could be drowning ourselves in books and just wait, living through books. Um, what happens if your worldview comes entirely from books? Is that a good thing? Or is it another matrix? Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. I've got a book. I've got a book. Look, I've got a book he wrote. Wait, he's over there. Pointing. So here's C.S. Lewis reading, right? And we all want to be C.S. Lewis, right? We want to be living through the books. Premise, yes. This is a good thing, right? We want to be living in the books.
Living in the, it depends on the book, doesn't it?
So welcome everyone here on the Mosaic Ark. We are here to get you inside the medieval worldview, and we know how to do it because we have C.S. Lewis and Tolkien as our guides, and that's a good thing, right? Okay, so the ongoing series, and I'm finding out. Okay, all of these I've still spent the last week on the internet, particularly on YouTube, trying to understand how better to be in this particular medium because I am much more familiar with being surrounded by books, although I don't show them on camera here, right? I really should, right? Don't you? Casey's doing better than I am, right?
I actually, yeah, no. Yeah, I know you've got a small room there, and beyond the confines of what the camera can see, it's a warehouse of books. And
I was actually
that,
on campus looking at my books there too. There's several rooms with books. There's an
sounds about
entire
right.
apartment, which my husband despairs of ever seeing the floor at some point. Plus the books on campus. Plus, of course, my access to one of the great research libraries in the world, our Regenstein, and then through the Regenstein Library, access to interlibrary loan and every other book you might imagine. It's exquisite, right? Living
I would
inside
get lost.
inside a world of books. What?
I would get lost because I could just easily just keep browsing forever, and I don't know if that's purgatory or heaven. I'm not, but
Well,
again, it depends on the book, depends on the library.
but the general sense of those despairing of the effects of the internet, which is also what I've been studying a lot. I'm a little well. I shouldn't be blue tonight because of course today is the feast of Our Lady Assumption,
Yes.
so I should be very delighted and happy. Except for I went to campus to go to mass, and half of campus flooded a few days ago, and the chapel was
Ooh.
shut. So
Oh,
I,
bummer.
did, I didn't expect that. So we had the sea came in, and instead of being able to celebrate Mary as Star of the Sea, we just had the sea filling
I
up the
was just thinking
basements
that.
on everything. Yes, but anyway, I am having not been able to go to mass, and spending way, 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 way too much time watching YouTube videos about how to get more YouTube video hits. Gotten a bit overwhelmed with the being on the internet thing. And yes, it seems like wouldn't it be better simply to be back with my books? It's certainly what Lewis wanted to do, right? And so we're using a book. I'm getting tongue tied because I just want to dive back into the book, right? We're using a book to help us understand the worldview of a culture that was itself, first premise, most important, and we talked about this last week, that Lewis gives us a world in which people's worldview came from books, right? And you guys are going to have to tell us in the chat exactly how much you want us to like pace ourselves through Discarded Image. But one of the things that Lewis definitely does do is go through in 2 chapters, chapter 3 and chapter 4, some of the books that the medieval authors were using to make their images in their poetry and other stories and such. So books, some on books, some on books. They just keep talking to each other. All the books, they're talking to each other all the time.
Yes, borrowing from each other as they're writing, which kind of surprised me.
How so?
Well, okay, my favorite quote from the book has exactly from the Discarded Image is the conversation that writers have about wanting to do something original. Because his point was that nobody ever did anything original. Everybody's always borrowing from somebody else, and he gives all these examples going back, all the way back to ancient Greece.
Right.
And the response to the question, "Can't you do something original?" is surely we aren't that desperate, or something like that. surely we're not reduced to that, right? To be coming up with something original. And
why would you want
said,
to?
okay.
I mean,
yeah, that was the point. Yeah.
But this is what's so funny about people, the way they're using the LLMs now. It's like the LLMs are like in some ways the perfect medieval machine, because they've scooped up all of the text, well, from Reddit and
Well, yes, but
yeah,
they
Reddit and Wikipedia, right? They scooped it all up and they're just rehashing it over and over and over again. Why
well, they
would
are
you want to do
rehashing
something
it
original? What?
because they're not doing it with any love at all. The point was that these authors loved these works, loved them so much they wanted to reproduce them, right? Not just to put their stamp on it, but to just use it as a source material for their story, or maybe to continue it. But they definitely loved it, and that's why they wanted to write it, wanted
Keep
to
writing.
keep writing it, right? Don't want the story to end. It's almost like fan fiction. Come to think of it, that phenomena where people love the story so much they write their own stories based on what they just saw or what they just read.
Okay,
That doesn't make it
Mel,
good.
who
And it's
does our
garbage,
clips,
but
you need to do that clip, and this is the entire point of our entire stream tonight. What she just said.
good night, everyone.
Well done. Go read a book. Right? It's all fan fiction. I mean, and there is a fundamental truth in this. It's like everyone despairing about how all of our stories since 1997, Brian Niermeyer, we read a lot. We're going to start like shamelessly name dropping. We've been very purist for the first 3 years of the Mosaic Ark, pretending that we are not going to like try to shame you guys into not knowing stuff that we know. And then you in the comments are obviously going to come shame us for not knowing things you know. And then that feeling of knowing, can I name drop the authors that C.S. Lewis says the medieval worldview was built on? Well, can we name drop the authors whose our worldview is built on? It's a little bit of a competition, right? But anyway, Brian Niermeyer has been talking about how the culture died in 1997. The dates vary, right? So he says he's very certain that everything died in 1997. And
Really?
yes, and
Why
that
that year?
he has tried to explain. I think there's a whiff of nostalgia in his point there. It should be 1999 because of course that's when the Matrix is set. Or the Matrix is set in the future, but then the present that they live in is frozen at 1999, right? So there's some way in which, and after that, the point being, after that, there's nothing but rewrites and rehashes and composite retellings of the same intellectual properties over and over and over again, so that all we get are remakes of you know the same stories.
But this is a great example of what Lewis is talking about. Lewis is talking about literature, but we could be talking about film. It's the same thing. They're telling stories and they're retelling them.
Hmm.
So The Highlander is going to be remade, and I'm thrilled because it's one of my favorite movies, even though I admit it was so cheesy. Oh my goodness, it was so cheesy. It's such a great concept. It could be done so much better. So I'm actually looking forward to it being remade. But this is what the authors of these books were going through. They didn't think it was cheesy. They just loved the story so much they wanted to do it again, right? They just kept rewriting it
Yep.
in slightly different ways.
Yep.
So this is the same thing the filmmakers are doing today.
For 1700 years. You think it all died
Yeah,
in 1997, less than
no.
30 years ago? They were okay. So here's now this I hadn't anticipated this is our starting point, but this is a good one, right? Okay, so the selected materials that they use from the classical period include the Somnium Scipionis, which is a dream in Cicero's Republic. So it's from Cicero, right? So it's like year dot, right? Beginning of the Christian era, a little before Cicero dies before that because he's murdered. But anyway, that we
Yeah, there were a
have.
lot of these authors murdered on this list, but go on.
It was dangerous being an
A
orator in the
thinker.
Republic. He was murdered. He was murdered, and after Caesar was murdered, right? Um, that Cicero's dream of Scipio is being shown in a dream the cosmos. I have you've read this more recently than I haven't. Lucan, he's living in the 1st century. His Pharsalia, Statius Claudian in the Lady Natura, right? And Epulius, the Deus Socrates. He's more famous for his Metamorphoses, the Golden Ass. He talks about demons and then the middle period, the seminal period. You guys don't know all of these? Shame on you. I
Of
mean,
everything you just listed, I read
we've
one.
we've been shamed. We've been shamed in our comments. I hope he's visiting us tonight, for not having read Neuromancer. Well, that doesn't persuade me to read it because shaming people for not reading stuff is likely to backfire. So we get it. I'm not really shaming you guys. Come on, I'm trying to intrigue you. But the sort of why haven't you read such and such? Because that's the basis of everything that you're about to be talking about. It's happened before, right? So there's Chalcidius and see, I don't even have no misery. Macrobius. Macrobius is a commentary on Cicero, right? So Macrobius is writing at the end of the 4th and the beginning of the 5th century. Cicero is writing at the end of the 1st century BC. So 400 years later, 400 or 500 years later, Macrobius writes a commentary on Cicero's Somnium Scipionis, and that becomes another of the great sources. So that's already an adaptation of an adaptation. And then Pseudo-Dionysius, who travels under a pseudonym for the whole of the Middle Ages, and Boethius, who is basically translating everybody else, and then because he in prison and has no books left, I suppose, writes the Consolation of Philosophy. So, and then there's others, right? But as Casey is saying, and that she's learning for the first time, and I'm remembering as I do, having I was in my office. Did I say I was in my office on campus today? I'm looking at my books, which are tiered in my office based on like it's like a reverse lobster shell or something of when I first read them. So all of the stuff that I read longest ago are at the very top because I put them up there because I'd read them, and I was adding new stuff as I got further and further down, and I was having to pull some books off of the very top because for a class that I'm teaching this autumn. That all of those go into being in this worldview, and they are doing what Casey was just saying, retelling the stories over and 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 over through to the 17th century because they love them so much.
Yes.
I'm wondering how many of our viewers tonight, or viewers hi in YouTube, now I forgot what I was going to say. Who am I talking to? I forgot. I completely
Who is
blanked
your
on what I was going to
audience?
say. Well, no, I was thinking about
You're thinking about the book you pulled off the shelf in preparation for
yeah,
class.
but what I was thinking about was the sort of how many of you have read all the medieval literature that was written on the basis of this worldview? You're going to tell us that Beowulf and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight were great, and no other literature since then has been as great. And I would to be, inclined to agree. Beowulf is very great. I just spent the last week reading Tolkien's translation and commentary on it. It's a very great poem. Tolkien also translated Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. But instantaneously, people can show up in Telegram chat asking me if I've read versions of Parsifal I didn't even know existed because I don't do romance
Mhm.
literature. I barely read most of this stuff. It's an enormous, enormous field of literature out there. Far, far more stories than, I mean, I sometimes get a glimpse of how many there are out there, but since I don't do vernacular literatures and I tend to really focus mainly on, I don't know, Marian fan fiction, there is far more out there than any of you probably are aware of.
I read a lot of the things you just mentioned, and by the same translation. It was Tolkien. I remember now because I remember that caught my eye when I was in college. Like, oh, he did a translation of this. So, knew nothing else about him, but a lot of the authors that were listed by Lewis in this book, The Discarded Image, I've heard of a lot of them. I've
Mm-hmm.
read bits and pieces of some of them, and as part of my education, there were a few I've never heard of ever before. And like you say, you got to imagine how many more are there that influence these writers. It's like a great it's like a great big stew, isn't it, of information, right?
Constantly. And they're versions of versions of versions. I mean, the Arthurian romance cycles are because they kept so Chrétien. Okay, I can do some of this. Geoffrey of Monmouth writes, possibly on the basis of previous stories that he got given in a book by a clerk at Oxford. Um, he writes the history of the kings of Britain, which includes a version of the earliest full version that we have of the Arthurian story. Maybe he
Mm,
invents it, maybe it's a Welsh legend. Talk amongst yourselves, right? And then
mhm.
Chrétien de Troyes, who in fact may be a convert, which is why his name is Christian, right? He's Christian of Troy, writes some of the most famous versions of things like Parsifal, The Knight in the Cart, which is the Lancelot story. The Lancelot, well, anyway, I read those a while ago. Eric and Enid, right? Those get, including Parsifal, particularly gets rewritten several times. The Grawl turns into a Grail. You end up with the whole Grail legend stories. You end up with more Lancelot versions. There's the prose Lancelot. There's a this. There's a that. I sort of waded into some of this at one point. I can tell you, it's like Miracle Stories of the Virgin are translated to every vernacular in Europe. It's like
Mhm.
it's a list a dozen languages long at least. There's literature in all of those languages as well that are these stories, right? And the most popular ones are taking the characters that they have from the stories that they like and retelling them. There's a lot of Roland stories too, and Charlemagne. So Ariosto, when he's writing Orlando Furioso, when Orlando goes mad and one of them has to go to the moon to get his wits back, whatever, right?
That sounds like a fun
Even
story.
our inspiration Spencer with his fairy queen. I mean, he's got King Arthur in it. He's killing a dragon. It's all based. It's the long passages, somewhat less confusing than some of the fairy queen, directly lifted from Geoffrey Monmouth, right? So it's
Mm.
this phenomenon of taking the stories that you love, wanting so much to be in that story that you write another one. It's been happening for a lot longer than just 1997.
Yes, right. And like I think famously the Romans were the first to do that with Greek literature, right? And they created the Aeneid.
Right. Yes. Well, exactly. So JC says the stew of story, dip in and find a piece to use. Exactly. Right. It's
Mhm.
you are it's it's a big stew and we take out pieces of it and savor them and want to make our own recipes and variants on them and so forth. So, and Lewis, of course, Lewis and Tolkien, because unlike me who is actually in the history department, so my job it's a kind of figure ground problem, right? Lewis and Tolkien were literature professors, so they got to focus on the stories. And insofar as they talked about history, it was context for the stories that they were talking about. They didn't really have to worry about the cause and effect of history in the way that I do. I have to worry about having classes that show you the entire world that the stories inhabit and reflect on and come out of, but it's a different kind of question, right? So, in some ways, I find Lewis and Tolkien just don't have to deal with anything that I have to think about. But on the other hand, I don't think about a lot of the materials that they got to immerse themselves in. So that's it's more. There's always more out there than report seems to suggest. Okay, she's thinking.
Okay.
What do we do with that? Well, okay, so no, and that's actually fair. So what do we do with that thought, right? Because it's saying, all right, so we're going to just read the good ones, right?
Well,
We're just going
okay.
to read, and that's, I mean, to a large extent, when people get to read stuff in college, we're picking the good stuff for you.
Yes. How much bad stuff is there? Begs the question.
Well, none or all of it, right? It depends on your mood.
Well, you're not. Well, I mean, you're not getting it. You're like, so you're getting the good stuff. How much bad stuff was written? Because the fan fiction, a lot of it is bad. like, modern things I'm thinking of, and I don't want to name names, but there have been major motion pictures made out of them over the last 10 years. Fan fiction of fiction that was bad to begin with. So you got to wonder when you're picking all the good stuff out and giving it to your English majors, like I was one. It's like how much landfill is there of writings that just nobody thought was any good, so they just never went anywhere.
Most of it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Well, and
probably.
that is actually a problem. I mean, so I say one of the things I say is I read, books that other people think are boring, and I show you why they're not, which is, from my perspective, mainly fan fiction about Our Lady. Right? That's why when you said it's the fan fiction, it's like biblical. Think about what creates the most literature, and this is actually a really important thought to keep in mind, right? Books mostly like talking about other books. That's my like professorial version of what Casey said earlier. most
Okay.
most of it's fan fiction. It's because authors. It's an interesting once you're it's like a media problem, right? Once you're in the written context, the thing that you end up doing most, and people will make fun of this, and it's like scholarship writes about other scholarship, books write
Mhm.
about other books. And of course, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking of a Terry Pratchett image of the library that the orangutan librarian is in charge of, right? And the books sort of like talk to each other, and new books
Oh,
come out, and it's like this is if you, for example, go to our university library, and it's filled and filled and filled with books, and most of those books have footnotes referencing each other, right? So you have the
mhm.
books are all basically talking to each other. You can say, where's the human author involved in this? Maybe the books just generate out of the, and that's the joke that Pratchett makes, right? That the the library just generates itself, so that the
Yeah.
librarian has to go off looking for, leave banana peels along the way so that he can
Pratchett must have
find his
Pratchett
way
must have
back.
been he must have been like you. He must have had like an entire house full of books. And this was kind of an inside joke he wrote about his own book situation. That's
That
my guess.
that actually came fairly early in the series. That's in Guards, which is
Yeah.
pretty early. Yeah, and he'd already understood what the books were doing. And he's also, I mean, it's famously like it's what Umberto Eco was playing off of in Name of the Rose. It's what and Eco is of course referencing with Jorge Luis Borges, Labyrinth, the library that
Mm.
is itself, these self-generating media that you end up feeling like, well, there's no world for the books outside the books, and in fact there isn't. I mean, the books can't. Okay, big
I
spoiler
just
alert. This is where I was trying to get to anyway. But the because I want you to be thinking, if you like reading, if it's like Casey's got books behind her, right? If your best world is a world in which you get to sit and read all the time, where are you? Like, what happens when your entire worldview is created by books? Now, for Lewis in the discarded image, he's saying this model of the universe that we promise we're going to be talking about in the future. It's not tonight, and not at that level anyway.
I'm sworn not to skip ahead. Go on.
It
Just so you all know.
involves the heavens, the earth, people, animals, plants, everything, right? But you could say it's like an image of the world outside the books, and Lewis is showing you that it only comes from inside the books. And the problem is that books, what they like doing is talking about other books. So how much of it ever touches reality?
I think it's what he was describing, was people's observation of existence itself, as it turns out, and all of it, all of creation, and what their personal thoughts on it, that they committed to books that inspired other people that thought the same thing. And it, like you said, it was like a self-perpetuating theme running throughout all the literature up through the Renaissance. And
Right,
then it
but then
changes
but
abruptly.
then we know what happens in the 17th century is that the guys with the instruments and the telescopes and the microscopes come upon and ridicule the people who have been spending their time reading the books.
Yes. Yeah. Or, yeah. Ridiculing old information, out with the old and with the new.
Right. But the problem being it's like I think it's easy to I mean modernity has always been siding with the guys with the telescopes who also wrote books. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known what they saw in the telescopes. But hold that thought. But oh, it's much better if you want to know something to go out there and observe it and measure it. And that's why, of course, right now in the universities, the University of Chicago just put out a big announcement this week. I think it's been bubbling up, and I think the world found out about it this week that we're reorganizing the arts and humanities, which history is not part of. We're in social sciences, it's different division, graduate
Mm.
division, but they've they first over the past 20, 30 years created all sorts of arts programs or visual arts and media programs and stuff. They're fusing those into one big division with the humanities, fusing a bunch of those departments and not admitting graduate students in a lot of the language fields for next year because
That's awful.
they're reorganizing all sorts of things. And of course everyone's yes, it's awful. I mean, it's we have music and art history, the arts, the language programs, English is all in that division. And what people from the outside in the world are saying, well, this is absolutely terrible
Mm.
because what's winning is the departments and the divisions that make stuff and get patents and money for the institution, which writing books about books just fills up the library.
Unless people buy the books, yeah. And there's a lot less money in that than there are in grants, in scientific grants, that, for people that want to make things that can be sold.
We can sell books, but not. I mean, this is the problem, right?
Not
It's
at
like
that high a
this.
price.
No, it's the tension between the world in the books and the world outside of the books. And the present day academy is tends to the claim made since the 16th 17th century that the world outside the books is the real world and the world inside the books is irrelevant and fake and talking only to itself.
Okay, why do we need more than one science book in existence?
Well, they write books too.
No, it's a question related to what you just said, though. I mean, that's just the outside world. None of that matters. What matters is what we're studying in laboratories. It's like, okay, but you've already studied it, so why even think about it? That sounds too much like philosophy. Better not risk it.
Well, yeah, there's I mean, obviously, I think the guys in STEM should be reading the books more too, because anyway, that's wrong rabbit trail. No, put like
I have a feeling I'm skipping ahead without knowing
that's
it.
okay. Put a sentinel rabbit in that opening, or maybe a prairie dog. Stick a prairie dog there, and he's going to be sitting up waiting for us. Um, the problem being thinking about what happens when you live in a world that's created by books talking to other books. And you have rightly said, and you said this last week, and I corrected you, and then I uncorrected you, and then I'm still going to say it again, that the guys that Lewis is talking about using this model are not going out and making observations, allegedly. Oh, I have to correct myself. Oh, I hate this. Sorry, that if you do
I'm
this in
lost.
books, I'm lost too. If you do this in books, you get to think it out and then write it down and then stabilize it before you're like trying to do improv version on the internet with video recordings. Um, what Lewis is claiming is that these guys did not go out and make observations. What they did was mainly read the books, and therefore
Yes.
their conception, and in that sense, unfortunately, Lewis is wrong, but we'll get to that. In his conception of what it is like being in the life of the books is you are generating, and this is the world building question, right? You're generating this whole image of reality out of your imagination based on the fan fiction that you're reading in this world. So
Hmm.
the question then being like, what's the value of doing that? So if we are reading their books and they were reading books, we're in a world view constructed entirely out of books. So what is good about that? And I mean, I'm sitting on this a little, maybe a little too long, um, because there is a propensity among our side of the conversation on the internet to um, un simply to point to reading and say that's the good thing, right? We have friends who do that. We say, look, read books, right? If I hear them on their own videos, right? Get off the internet. Stop doom scrolling. Read a book. It gives you something you can't get any other way. And then
Right. Your
it
brain processes the information differently when you read it versus when you listen to it or watch it.
right, and the default is, and that is a good thing. It is better for you.
Well, I think it probably is better for your brain health as an organ, but that's just speculating on scientific discovery about brain health, isn't it? I mean, it's certainly better for calming you down because the flashing lights and noise from a computer or a device can be disruptive to your nervous system. And
I
a
don't
book
know.
doesn't do that.
I have every guarantee that we put people to sleep already. We are so soothing
I don't think we're a sleeping
on
pill.
this. I don't know. It's like, maybe we're comfort. I have been told many times that people use my voice to put their children to sleep.
Really?
Well, three times maybe. But no, that it's like storytelling, right? It's like we're sitting here, we're reading a book, I'm reading out loud. We're sitting in this video environment, which is one thing. I mean, you're describing
because
it as
because
flashing
it's
lights and stuff. I've got cool
well,
lights. Did you notice my cool lights? You see
yeah, well, it's interactive.
my pretty lights? But right, but well, not so much right now. We only have we have a select audience in our chat
Okay,
tonight.
but
Hi,
yeah, I
Mel.
mean, live or not, when you're watching a video and you're watching people talk, it's like you're in the conversation, which makes this format so popular, and so it makes it
Okay.
interactive, which means it is an action because it's interactive. So that it can calm you, I suppose, depending upon what you're interacting with. If you're calm, or if you're having an excited discussion about something, it's not going to be so calming. Um, so it just does depend. A book doesn't do that. It's just you and the book. It's you and the thoughts of the person who put those thoughts on the page. The person is now out of the picture and just left with his thoughts. So it's you and his thoughts. So it's a little more calming, but you can digest it. Your brain can digest it
There's
easier.
this book that I will say this, and maybe they'll go viral on the internet after all. It's called 12 Rules for Life. I really didn't feel calmer after reading that book.
I've never heard of it.
Yes, you have.
12 Rules for Life? Is
12 Rules for Life.
that a Jordan Peterson
Oh
thing?
yes.
Oh, okay. That's why.
I mean, I no. So it no. The thing. Okay,
Okay.
this is an interesting claim you're making. It's calmer to be reading because you're there with your book. It is more demanding, right? It's like sitting with a book is
It's demanding of your time.
well,
Yes.
and so is sitting and listening to long videos, right? And
But you can
if you could
walk and do other
actually,
things.
well, and okay, that's true. That's true. What people are not examining, which we want to examine, is in fact the effects of being in doing this kind of activity, because the default claim is, if we want our Western civilization back, right, if we want to be in recovery mode of all of the good things that we used to think, we imagine that we used to have, if only we could get back to them, we need to do it by reading books. Now, I put it to you that Lewis is, in fact, I'll do a little bit of exposition here, all right? Instead of dragging out the problematizing. Um, I forgot what I was going to say again.
You have too many thoughts in your head. You should read a book.
I should read a book. Um, Lewis is one of the ones that is, of course, largely responsible for creating this feeling of, we should be reading books, because he liked it, and he has a very interesting defense of this practice. He was also Lewis is both Lewis and Tolkien were frustrated. Well, you could say, were they frustrated with the media of their own day? Lewis spent a lot of his time doing radio. Right. So like Mere Christianity was actually lectures. They were radio lectures.
Oh,
Our book about reading books, we talked about this last week. It was originally lectures in class, right?
right.
This was prepared for publication right before he died. It came out after he died. This is not in origin a written thing. Neither was Mere Christianity. They were lectures. So in that sense, Lewis is, he's he's not deceptive. He's misleading in his own media work to make you think that the primary thing he did was books. He wrote a lot of books, right? But he and Tolkien also spent most of their time talking about books, not
Yeah.
writing. I mean, well, okay,
Well, I
they
think
were
it's
in
safe to say,
interaction with them, but
yeah.
their day job was talking about books, not
Well, but then it's safe to say their entire world was books. They even got into writing books, their own fiction, because they were dissatisfied with the fiction that was available,
exactly. And then everybody wants to come in and do world building like they did, and they don't do their homework. Read
which
the
these men
books,
did
right?
for sure, which this book makes very clear. I wish, I mean, I had good professors, but I wish he had been one of mine. It was,
That he had been. Well, and
yes.
and all of this. What's funny is, if you go to our website, to dragoncommon.com, and look in the study guides that are under the tab for the Mosaic Ark, I've given you lots of reading lists, and
Yeah,
there is far more of this medieval literature out there in translation than there was in Tolkien and Lewis's day. I mean, when they were the,
really.
yes, massively more. I mean,
How is that?
be,
I thought book producing was on the decline.
because there's so many people doing it, right? This is the
Oh,
irony. It's like the reason that people can't get jobs in the liberal arts anymore is because there's so many of us. It's
right.
a supply and demand problem, and everybody likes, people who like reading books want to spend their lives talking about books and writing their own books, and so you attract, and you have a pool of students who you want to, encourage to do the kind of work you're apprenticing them to do. So we ended up with more people trained to do the job than jobs.
Hmm.
But uh, the universities expanded in the 60s. They've employed a lot of people for the last 60 years. And one of the things that people have done as scholars is do translations. So we have way more translations of everything, and more editions and reeditions and better editions. And it's like the books have been talking to each other a lot in the last 50, 60 years.
It's wonderful.
And so if you want to read medieval literature now, I mean, not only can you get, I don't know, the AIs to read it to you, but there's far more of it available in modern languages than there was when Tolkien and Lewis were teaching their students. Tolkien, they had to, well, there was lots of translations of Beowulf, but they had to learn the original vernacular languages, because there was there were editions of them maybe, but not yet translations necessarily.
Mm. Yeah.
So we're in this wild world, right? On the one hand, convinced that the culture is all dying, but actually the culture is doing exactly what culture has always done, which is fanfic. Surrounded by books, convinced that the books aren't there, and it's still convinced that something valuable will come out of being inside these books. Well, Lewis explains why. And he has, this is in fact, so it's from a book that I've been asked to do a review of, Grace Hammond's Jesus Through Medieval Eyes. She's just come out with another book. The books are You see why I end up with so many. Right? And she's
You
start
can quit anytime you want, I know.
I never. It's I can't. I want more and more knowledge, right? It's a total addiction.
Hmm.
That Hammond has her own podcast. Guys, if you know her, tell her I want to talk to her. She mentions me in her book. That she has her own podcast, which is about reading old books. Right? She does old books with grace. So she talks about reading old books, and she's very much inspired by Lewis, particularly where he's talking in his preface to Saint Athanasius's on the Incarnation about the value of reading old books. Every age has its own outlook. It is especially good at seeing certain truths and especially liable to make certain mistakes. Nothing strikes me more when I read the controversies of past ages than the fact that both sides were usually assuming without question a good deal which we should now absolutely deny. They thought they were as completely opposed as two sides could be, but in fact they were all the time secretly united, united with each other and against earlier and later ages by a mass of common assumptions. None of us can fully escape this blindness, but we shall certainly increase it and weaken our guard against it if we read only modern books. Where they are true, they will give us truths which we half knew already. Where they are false, they will aggravate the error with which we are already dangerously ill. The only palliative is to keep the clean sea breeze of the centuries blowing through our minds, and this can be done only by reading old books. Not, of course, that there is anything magic about the past. People were no cleverer then than they are now. They made as many mistakes as we, but not the same mistakes. They will not flatter us in the errors we are already committing, and their own errors, being now open and palpable, will not endanger us. So he is actually right. That
Yeah.
you read
And
you if you read only books that are written in your own time, you're completely caught up in their mimetic desire, to put it in Girardian terms, right? The two sides that they're
yeah.
convinced are absolutely opposed. But that mimetic desire is only spun up. Again, Lewis doesn't say this, we say this. The mimetic desire is only spun up because they have so many assumptions in common. If you're reading outside of your own time, you become more aware of their assumptions, and you're then forced to recognize yours, which is, I think one of the things you can say is a medievalist. I've been so, excruciatingly aware constantly of the assumptions of modernity, because when I read the medieval sources, it becomes quite obvious what our assumptions are. So if I can, as a modern, living person, see things that other modern living people can't, it's partly because I've spent myself surrounded by all of these books that are speaking from another layer of assumptions, which is what Lewis is saying. It's like they're not any cleverer than we are, but neither are we any cleverer than they. Right? We're just as much caught up, and in our assumptions, which we can't see, we simply cannot see. So
Mhm.
if you're only consuming media that is made in your own moment, you will never see the frame that it is holding in common, and all the conflicts that happen within it that seem so, real, the big fights that
Yeah.
everybody has on the internet
Or
are
on the world
all
stage.
completely within the internet, right? That they are so vicious and bitter and appear to, have hamster wheel um, ability to persist because they're within the world of the same assumptions.
Mm.
Okay, so that's the first thought. How real then is our own perception of what's going on?
What do you mean? What's going on? Like in general?
It, well, okay, so how did I made some notes. Let me just have to get through the notes that I had these ideas on.
Because
Okay.
you're saying you can see you can recognize your assumptions because you recognized assumptions from the past that people no longer hold today. And I'm
Right.
wondering how that's possible. that you can see them today because of what you saw and what somebody else wrote 1,000 years ago.
We can see ourselves because of our clash with their vision. Yes. You
Oh
just
yeah,
that's what you just said. Yes.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
no, I might have said that. um, mostly people just reject anything that was written in the past as either poetic license or scientific ignorance, especially when they're talking about the planets and astrology and things like that.
Right.
So I think people modern day will just immediately reject all that. And so, what are they going to see in themselves by noticing their allusions to the heavens
Okay, so
and to
I'm
creation?
not going there yet.
Okay.
I'm simply and I'm probably influenced by reading Hammond because I was asked to review her. Um and it's not going to help because you haven't read this. Uh
Nope, I did my homework though.
you did do your homework. She did do her.
I only read what I was told to read.
I, I when I was younger and my syllabi were for my courses were enormous, right? Because I would just be assigning all this stuff that I needed to read and I needed the frame of the class to be
I
reading
wouldn't have
within.
survived your class.
Yeah, I barely did. Right. Now, happily, I've read enough that I feel grounded sufficiently to be able to deal with the things that I've assigned to the class. And so I can just know it for them. Right. And so we go into class and they've read what I've asked them to. And then I can, sort of point to things that are also there. But I also, in order to get through class at all, have to just not say most of what I'm thinking because we'll never get out. Right? So what I'm showing now is Duke Humphrey's reading room of the manuscript world that Tolkien and Lewis actually lived in, right? This is where they studied because these are where the
Oh,
manuscripts are. And,
nice.
if you have read this room, which nobody has, right? It's like all libraries are bigger than any of us can read. It's physically, I mean, some people can read heroically for sure, but uh, it no one person can read the whole library. It's impossible. It's physically impossible. And then you get a culture. Not only is there fan fiction, there's a culture of summaries. Right here, I haven't, and again, ChatGPT is doing this, but summaries of books for students are again as old as books. I'll
Yes.
never get
Yes.
through
Cliff
all of that.
notes.
Oh, here's the short version, so you know what the plot is, right?
Yes.
Um,
That was the professors would do sneaky things like, put something on the test that was only in the introduction or the prologue, something that did not make it into the summaries, just to make
yes,
sure
to
you
see
read
whether
it.
you actually read the assigned text, right? But you have to do this, right? It's like if there's encouragement here, you must be reading all of the books because otherwise you won't know when they're talking to each other. If you only go with the summaries are not going to tell you what the book said to each other, just flat out, right? The summaries don't
Yeah.
include the footnotes, they don't include the cross references, they don't include the links between the books. So you'll
And I
miss all
think,
of this. You'll miss
right.
this chatter that's going on between
And
all of the
that was
books.
Lewis's main point in the discarded image was how all the books are, like I said, talking to each other, right?
Yes.
And reproducing
And
in different generations.
right. And that's why, so if as a reader you go into a library that has this many books and you're suddenly like, one, you have the feeling of I can finally find it. The book that I have, that other books have been talking about, I can find now because I'm
Yeah.
now in the presence of the originals that are talking about the books, which of course all of us who do get to finally see the manuscript that we've been reading about all along. It's like, oh, it's better than celebrities because you are in the presence of the book that they've all mentioned. That's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Um, there was another layer there, but you're also in terror, right? And it's like when you first start study at this level, you go in that library. This is just one reading room in the Bodleian, right? This is just the manuscript reading room. It's not the whole library. Horror and dread at the labyrinth that you've suddenly plunged into is your second response. It's like, yes, all the books are here and I will never know enough. I will never have read enough of these books to be able to do this kind of, thinking yourself into the world that you want to inhabit with all of these books? I mean, Casey's making fun of me because she knows how many. It's like every single time we're writing anything, Rachel has another stack of books on that stanza,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Can confirm.
And I tell Casey and Mel what to read, and they're diligently reading it. I'm like, oh yes, but there's another book that we
And then we just go, oh,
never mind.
I'm all proud of myself. Look, I
I
finished this.
finished
Great.
this
We
one,
got two
right?
more. I'm like, what?
And they the sort of it talk about the image of the heavens, right? They keep this concentric sense of, and this book mentions this book, and this book mentions this book, and this book mentions this book, and we
Yes.
keep going out and out and out and out, and you're still to the point where, and there's more.
Yes.
Every single one of which is a potential challenge to your own perspective. And certainly the from the 12th century to the 15th century to the 18th century to the 20th century to the 1980s to the 2000s to the 2001s. I think part of the problem is the internet. So what Niermeyer is saying with the internet, everything died in 1997. He's saying it's all just talking to itself now. It's folded in on itself, which
Mm,
we say ironically, since all of these books, manuscripts, PDF, printed early printed books, they've all been scanned, so they're all out there now,
right.
potentially for you to be reading them. The internet as this light, this other place library where go into it and you'll never come out.
That's true. You could get lost in it easily.
So how do we know? How do we know what's real? How do we know which? Okay, so scientifically, when you've been reading about the heavens and everything, and so if Lewis is talking about these books have been talking to the other books. It's like the most real version of where this world exists is this image of the library, right? It exists in the library, in people's reading, in their imagination, and we and the internet world are who are terrified of everything turning into AI generated fan fiction of previous human activities, want to know what's real anymore. How are we going to find out? Oh, well, we could
Physical
read some
copies
books.
of
We
books.
could read some books.
To read some
We
books.
could read some more.
Right. I just had I just had a thought. The books aren't talking to each other. The reader is talking to the author of the books. The author of the books is talking to all their readers from the point he first printed it to however long it physically lasts. So it's pretty amazing that these all got scanned in and you can still read them because you're communicating with the author's thoughts at least.
The thing you say, okay, I'll go back. I right now I'm showing Mary Harrington's books. I'll go back to the Duke Humphreys. Yes. Okay, so in it's interesting the picture that I chose of the library because there's no readers in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's somebody taking the photograph.
You told me
There's
I wasn't allowed in the library because I didn't go to that college. Sure, we
in
had this
the
discussion
Bodleian,
before.
no, I think so
Right.
this one you'd have to, yeah, you everybody laughs about the I will not kindle flame oath that you have to take to get a Bodleian the reader card. it's it's
Oh,
it's it's
that's funny.
it's just they can't it's a working library, so they can't have tourists coming to just look. I think maybe they may take, I don't know whether they have tours, right? So you do need to like have some reason to use the library to get in, and librarians are, they're dragons guarding their hoard, for goodness sake. They're not going to let just anybody in. Hobbit might
Yeah,
steal the book.
yeah.
Right? Run off with the treasure, for goodness sake. Um, so uh, maybe one day we'll figure out a reason that we all have to go to the Bodleian and we can go and get readers cards and get in. But anyway, but the books themselves, like I'm making this image of the books talking to each other, but you're right, they can't any more than the AIs can actually talk. The books, I mean, we imagine all. It's what I find funny about the chatbot LLM phenomenon is it's fulfilling a fantasy that readers have constantly had of the book talking to them.
Oh,
oh, if only the book if only the characters in the book were real, if only I could interact with them, if only, oh, right, and you write your own fan fiction, right? And now
Right.
the bots can generate it as if they're writing the fan fiction. But in fact,
Yeah.
none of this happens without human minds to be in interaction with these. What the whats are they, right? What are the books?
But only a human mind can understand a human mind. The AI can't understand a human mind. It can only try to duplicate what its best guess is of what a human mind wants when it gives it prompts.
Right. Well, okay. So I think most people are most of our world is well, our world. The places that I read on the internet seem to be converging on a particular theme, which is obviously I'm reading these people on the internet, and we are converging on a particular theme, which is, wouldn't it be wonderful if somehow we could recover that world which we see through these books? That world that Lewis has described for us in the discarded image. I mean, there's the discarded image of the heavens as such, right? Which is what we're going to get into because we've been using this to write our own poem because we are writing our own fan fiction off of this world model. But there's that model of the universe, and if only we could see the world from the perspective of the medieval Christian writers, like bluntly, right? Why aren't we all medieval Christians? Seeing the world as enchanted as the people who wrote the books that we like reading seem to have been. Wouldn't it what would it take to have that world again? And where is it? And it's the interesting thing is that it feels real to people. It feels real that there must have been people out there in the world who believed in dragons and elves, not you. And
I'm, a, I'm an elf
the
denier.
elf
Yeah.
denier. She's not gonna be enchanted. Who believed in I don't know, the Assumption of the Virgin Mary, and the transubstantiation of the bread and wine into the body and blood, and who believed in the reality of the incarnation, and who believed in all of these beautiful things that modernity has considered fairy tales. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could be in that enchanted world again?
There are plenty of people who do believe that, those things, those religious things. They're not a majority anymore. So the time these writers were writing, everybody believed the same things. I think, in fact, Lewis made that point. He said the people who, the pagan and the Christian had more in common with each other in their worldview than a Christian then would have with one today. Or to
Yes,
paraphrase,
well,
he didn't say it
but
exactly.
it goes back to what he said in this passage where he's saying in the old books they have big debates, but they're not talking about the thing that they simply assume,
Yes,
right? Just like we
yes.
have giant debates, but there's all sorts of things that the world now takes as given, which we never look at, and
And there's
we never question, because I mean, in Lewis's terms, I mean, we don't become aware of it unless we're, and books are a good way of getting outside of that because they force us through these thoughts that we wouldn't be able to have otherwise.
I think the one point he made in, I think it was chapter 3, was it chapter 3 or 4? Anyway, that the pagans that everyone so admired openly, and this was happening in the 20th century. So as Lewis is writing, he's
Mm-hmm.
aware of this. This pagan LARPing thing isn't new. It's been going on for half a century at least,
Oh,
if not a
longer than that.
century.
It's all in the 19th
Yeah,
century was pagan LARPing.
yeah, and including Chesterton before he became a Christian. But yes, he said he considered it, and Lewis thought this was kind of amusing. He said that the pagans of old that everyone is venerating right now would think they're ridiculous. They would say, because they were very religious, and the assumption by the LARPers is that they weren't religious. They just appreciated nature, and these were just natural expressions, and he just made the point that, yeah, an ancient pagan had more common with an ancient Christian than it would have in common with any pagan today. They wouldn't recognize
Right.
them.
Right. That's a good thing to think about because okay, so I went back to Duke Humphreys. Now I'm going to go back to Harrington's because I mean we're in this moment where we're feeling I mean this is Nehemiah's 1997 feeling this old world that we're losing, and the old world that we're losing we associate with the books and that world worldview generated through books in the way that Lewis describes it. And we're, I mean, and I do think this is fair, right? I'm not sure about the fan fiction culture being radically more horrible than any other previous period, but it does feel like at the moment it's hard for people to feel what story they're in.
Well,
Does
that
that feel accurate?
that does feel accurate because people seem to be confused about lots of things in general.
We got Daydreamer and John Abrisi. Aloha, ladies. Hello, I'm late. Yes, welcome. And they've got little crayons for some reason in the chat.
The
They're
Assumption of
top
Virgin Mary.
fans. We've got top fan number 2 and 3 here. Hi, guys. So say that again. Say it again because we're going slow through this, guys, because we're trying to break your reality.
Reality is broken. That's why everybody's confused.
Right. Yes. Everybody's confused. And the default answer seems to be, oh, if only but everybody would read books again. Right. I've heard our friend E. Michael Jones say that a lot. He wants people to read his books, which is
Right,
fair enough.
exactly.
Right.
Which books? Yeah.
Put down your phone, stop scrolling, read a book. Right. And that will, be the only way that you train your minds again. And we've got, our heroes, Lewis and Tolkien, who write the kind of stories we like reading, surrounded by books, and we're our friends like David Anston, who still does the best ads for book reading I've seen on Facebook ever, right? Posting regularly about here's a reader and you can read my book, The Medievalist, which is great. Read David Anston's book, The Medievalist. It's great.
It's awesome.
It really is.
Seriously,
It's a great book.
I can't recommend it enough. It was so much fun.
And yet, the primary assumption, now that we spent an hour talking about this, is that books contain all of this, right? It's over. I did it. Maybe. You are in a book, right? It's like what happens when your worldview is created entirely by books. And interestingly, Mary Harrington, who I've also been reading on her Substack. Shout out, guys! If you guys know these people, I can hound people and ask them to come on our podcast. But if we've been talking about them already, maybe be encouraged. She's been writing over the last few months about the media experience that we're in, and she did one a few months ago that was very interesting and quite close to the kind of things that we've been writing about, of how where we are has changed things. But in the post that she did 2 days ago, she's saying, I'm on vacation where I don't have internet, but here I am writing about some books that I read on the internet for you that I just and she's like, yeah, I know, I get it. It's like it's hilarious and twisted. But the books that she mentioned are the 3 that I'm showing here, and it's interesting because one of them, the Morello, Mysticism, Magic, and Monasteries by Sebastian Morello, one of my friends has been bugging me to read, so I like that was a sign I need to go read this one. Vanishing Landscapes by Bonnie Lander Johnson, and Twilight of the Godlings by Frances Young. I would say, from based on what Harrington said about it and based on my skim of it in the Amazon preview, if you want to know where all the elves and stuff came from, Godlings, the Twilight of the Godlings is your book. Frances Young has gone through all of the um, early medieval and late medieval literature and found where all the giants and elves and
Oh, that sounds like fun.
yeah, that and Ronald Hutton gave a blurb. He's got the blurb on the books are telling you about which books are good, right? You get the authors to tell you which books are good. Hutton, who's great on all of the pagan religions and
Mm.
rituals and such of medieval and early modern Britain, likes this book. The Twilight of the Godlings seems to be the place where you're going to find out where all those supernatural beings came from, right? Vanishing Landscape is about where the plants went and how we can find them again. But mysticism, magic, and monastery seems to be the closest to the problem that we are premising here in the Mosaic Ark, which is why modernity is sick. And what to do about it, right? So Morello is claiming here. You realize he has a picture. His cover picture is Hildegard of Bingen manuscript, right? So
Perfect.
yes, very good. Modernity, I have come to see, is ultimately a conjuring of black magic, by which the mind is hexed with abstractionism, rationalism, scientism, mechanization, and all the various ways we are rendered sightless by the blinding of the mind's eye. The universe, in turn, has ceased to be a meeting place of God and man, and has become lifeless stuff to be utilized. For what ultimate end we do not know, and nor do we trouble ourselves with such a question. We have consequently become a people without wisdom, and given that wisdom is the lifeblood of the mind and the animator of the heart, we are rightly judged dead. I see why my friend wanted me to read this.
Gauntlet thrown down. That's a
Yeah,
strong
that's
beginning.
great. Yeah, Harrington was like, it's a little polemic, and I'm like, woohoo! You have no idea. And she actually blurbs this book too, right? Sebastian Morello's Christian Counter History of Modern Mysticism is an invaluable tool in the arsenal of anyone who wishes to stay sane amid a world whose long-standing secular foundations are crumbling beneath us. Right? Okay. That's Harrington on Morello. As many have pointed out in recent years, that is likely why the only mythos that late modernity has been able to produce and reproduce in 1,000 different ways is that of the zombie apocalypse. For such a mythos cathartically and allegorically presents to us our current condition. See, Brian Niemeyer saying since 1997, it's all dead, right? Everything's died. We have nothing but zombies since whenever, right?
Yeah.
And so the premise here being, and Harrington, like us and all our friends agree, right? Everything seems thin, somehow not quite alive in the way that we wish it were, not quite material, not quite enchanted enough.
Or at all.
Right?
No, everything's got a scientific explanation, and science has not been the friend of the common man over the past 5 years.
Well, yeah,
So
for sure, right?
So zombie apocalypse sounds about right. Yeah.
So how do we get to this horrible, mechanized, scientific, modern world? This is a trick question. I'm now showing another library. This is a library in Rome that I visited. This is my picture. It's a Casanatense library, and it had this great exhibit on alchemy there. But how did we get to the modern world? They'll do the irritating music. Do, 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 do,
Is this a test for
yes,
me?
Yes, it's a test for you.
Oh, it is for me?
Yeah.
How have we got to it
come
through?
On. I need you. I've got to, it's like the
Okay.
improv doesn't work without you.
The microscope.
That would be a good answer, but that's not in the picture.
Okay.
River Run says, I'm in a MacBook. Oh, River Run is number one. River Run is our best. She's got a little crown here too. Okay, so I'm showing another library. So this Casanatense's library is from the 17th century. Now do you know?
The telescope?
No.
I don't have the pictures up, everybody. I'm sorry.
Well, it's a library.
Yeah, it's a library.
I just told you the answer.
Libraries don't cause modernity.
What? What caused modernity?
Yeah, it wasn't caused by a library. This has been around for a very long time.
Oh my gosh, she's not read her McLuhan.
Modernity was pre-radio. Were you talking about the printing press?
Yes.
Really? I mean, they just produced the books faster, but they were still books. They were still physical things.
She's doing.
I'm being judged right now.
She's playing straight man for me very well tonight, you guys. You really have to appreciate. Yes, exactly. That's why we don't see what happened. Right. So the Duke Humphreys Library. The Duke Humphreys is manuscripts in this picture. At least I hope these are mainly manuscripts. They could be early printed editions, right? McLuhan's entire argument, and Harrington should actually know this because she's been reading McLuhan too, right? It's like what happened, and ironically, so and Casey's saying microscope and telescope because that's what we've been working on in our 17th century
It is.
episode, right? But according to
But it
Marshall
happened right after, it happened right after the printing press, about 100 years, but anyway, go on.
the printing press did it, right?
Yes.
Because what McLuhan says, so this is the irony, right? Lewis and Tolkien want the world of the old books, right? But they're doing it in a context of print. What they want is the world of the manuscripts.
Mm. Did
Hmm.
they?
Yeah, they did. Because that's, well, I mean, Tolkien certainly did. Oh, I don't know about Lewis. Well, the thing is, they were both actually pretty good with other media. I mean, we said Lewis did the radio shows for Mere Christianity, and Tolkien actually. I mean, he read lots of newspapers. He wrote one of his kid stories about a car, Mr. Bliss, who wrecks his
Mm.
car, and he famously, to me, famously says that he would have liked a typewriter that could write in his Tingwar, his Elvish. So they weren't actually
Oh,
anti-tech, right? And
right.
they wanted to publish their books, but printed
No, no,
books,
they were
right?
talking about they were talking about the worlds inside the books.
Well,
I
okay,
think
and
that's what they
so
wanted.
this is the thing that I'm trying to go whoosh right with. Okay, so that we say we want to be inside this world of books, right? But the world that they're imagining is this world, in fact, of manuscript books, which Marshall McLuhan's entire point was is totally different from the printed world, because and he understood this, and I think this is why I was like, as a medievalist, I just flipped for it completely, because he understood that the world of the books that are created by handwriting on parchment and things like that has a different sort of um it's a media problem, right? It has a different experiential reality from the world that's created by the printed books. And one of the things that happens hugely in the 17th century, which is what's in Casanatense's reading room here, is their printed books. They're printing all of the medieval stuff. They're doing exactly what we in the internet now are doing with all of the older books, right? They scan them. They're in your phone. E. Gutenberg, all of this. It's like most of what's in Casanatense's library is, well, not most, but a lot of what's in Casanatense's library. Some of it's new books. A lot of it's the old knowledge into the new medium. And McLuhan's huge thing was the Gutenberg galaxy, saying something changed when you could make it mechanically, right? We don't like the internet
Yeah.
making AI art, which we don't, but except for with Sarah, um, because it's doing it mechanically, right? It's like losing the
So
craftsmanship, which it is.
it's impersonal.
But the printing press did the same thing. It made depersonalized all of this
Yeah.
world of when someone hand copied a book, you had an immediate contact with a craftsman who had to make all of those letters with his own hand. The little lead, the movable lead type. No hand ever touches that script anymore, right? It's a completely different process. And what McLuhan would say is it's that process that makes the environment that you're inhabiting, which is underneath. When Lewis is saying the old books carry this world of assumptions that we don't, so do the media.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I just thought of a story about tortillas.
Okay.
um, they introduced in somewhere in Mexico, they introduced mechanically made tortillas, and they gave it to a bunch of workmen and says, "What do you think?" They made them really quickly. Said, "Doesn't taste good. Doesn't taste right." Because, but it's the exact same ingredients. They said, "It's missing a woman's hands."
Bing.
Wasn't the exact same ingredients.
Right? So the manuscript,
Yeah.
all that information, I was enthusing about. My books are all printed books, right? Except for the stuff I write, my own hand. So my book here, right? This book is my handwriting. So it has a
Mm.
different flavor or character than all the other books that I'm waving around at you. Um, that if the media environment is real, if the magic that comes from the books is actually what we claiming it is, right? If I'm sitting reading a book and I'm in this world that you know exists in my imagination in contact with all these other authors, and say McLuhan would say, yes, but this is like a tortilla made with the machine,
with machine. Yeah, it's missing human hands.
and therefore is completely different from the other version of it, right? And I would say when Lewis is saying, I am pulling these all things together. I hope everybody's still with me. When Lewis is saying reading the old books gives you new ideas to rub up against the assumptions that you have, working in other media is also giving us insights into the effects of the media that they've had on us for the time, so that we in the internet, I mean, this is the fundamental thing, right? We're dissatisfied with the world of the printed books because it seems flat and unalive. How many people are complaining about that? I can't get into a book because it's so dead. Are they wrong?
Well, I'm not sure everybody thinks about it the same way. There are plenty of people who would buy store-bought tortillas made by a machine. They get used to it.
They get used to it.
But the information inside is important too.
I'm trying to get us to think about. Ooh, look, the chat's woken up. I finally got them to. Okay. John Abrisi, is it all that unique? Doesn't the Old Testament describe this going off on tangents from time to time and the people of God having to be called back or find their way back? River Run. Comic books. Ah, no. The real reaction came with Walt Disney and animation in the 1920s.
That was a
Tolkien,
big
P.M.
thing.
Travers, Mary Poppins, etc. Oh, now I know who John Abrisi is. Hi. um, all attacked Snow White in 1937. They hated animation, but ordinary people loved it. So I think the ordinary people loving it is the thing that we're reacting against with the, oh, everybody's, I mean, ordinary people seem to be liking Chat GPT,
Yeah,
right?
it is taking away their ability to think creatively. The longer they use it, it's a skill. It's a muscle. It has to be worked.
Well, but what McLuhan would tell us is, and so just hold the thought that reading old books and getting the ideas of previous cultures, what
Hmm.
I mean, and that's, I think, what Harrington is reading these books like Morello, talking about what we've lost when you read a lot of, and I said this, I started with this, right? I've read a lot of medieval text, most of them in translation because it's quicker, right? You could say I haven't, I mean, the things that I've read from my research, I've read those in the original Latin, but sitting down with them only in manuscript, no, I've read the printed version. So have I actually ever read those books? Hard to say, right? Because I've only read the information. I haven't and now that all the manuscripts are scanned, I go and look at the manuscripts, and some part of me says, you've actually not read the books. You know the words, right? But
But
have
why do
you?
you think that? Is it just because you're missing the personal relationship between the person long since dead who's actually written it out?
No, I think there's something more. I think the horror. I think about the horror that the people who wrote the books by hand, there was horror with the printing press, right? It's like, and there was horror. There've been horror at each stage of these media transitions, because as McLuhan says, and I will go now to my next slide. With every one of these media being the plural of medium, you you have this tetrad, right? And his tetrads are the thing that people get like sort of mystically enchanted by, and particularly in this book, The Laws of Media, which he co-wrote with his son Eric. They do a whole series of things that are, um let me see if I can find a simple one. uh, oh, TV, that's a good one. Okay, so each medium um enhances a human ability, right? It's like the media are extensions of man, so they're
Mm.
extending our physical and nervous abilities. they're extending our ability to, affect things in space and time, right? The, the extension part is his primary definition. That media extend us in some way, right? So
Hmm.
every medium amplifies, enhances some human property, like language or force or um, uh,
Just
mechanical effects on things or
reach. Like my
right,
voice can't reach over to Europe. I
right,
just stick my head out the window and yell, but it can through this medium.
exactly. Okay, so something's enhanced. At the same time, any new medium obsolesces a previous medium. So you have a new thing comes in. We're worrying about the internet obsolescing books. All right, we're worrying about the internet accessibility of digital books, ebooks, pushing out print books, but we're also worrying about the internet obsolescing all of the other media. Right? It's obsolescing comic books. It's obsolescing um, television. It's obsolescing radio, right? We do this on a podcast, which is not a radio transmission. So the new media come in and make obsolete previous versions of things, but they also, and this is one of his great insights, retrieve things from previously obsolete media. Ironically, right? So
Yeah.
something that will bring back, as well as it'll obsolesce one thing but also retrieve something else. And insofar as it pushes to its extreme, it flips its own properties, right? So and this diagram I found um, in a study of media effects after being online a lot very recently, and they very helpfully did to show the figure ground relationship, right? Something what's happening here is, do you see is the object of your attention one thing or the other? And the only way to explain that is it's an optical illusion face vase thing. Like if you
Mm.
see two faces or a vase, you can't see both of them. So one, sometimes the figure, if you just see the vase or the goblet, the faces are the ground of the vase. If you only see the faces, the goblet is the ground of the faces. I
Mm.
should have put
Right.
that in, right? So it flips back and forth, figure ground.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So that those tetrads, McLuhan, once he figured this out as the what all media do, started like spinning them off. Like, oh, can we think about like pick a media? We can figure out what they all do, right? So he says TV um, enhances the multisensuous using the eye as hand and ear, retrieves the occult, right? If everybody goes crazy with television, it's because it retrieves the occult. One sense through another, the ear and hand through the eye. It obsolesces the inner trip, the exchange of inner and outer, and it reverses radio movie point of view. It's all little occult and strange. He does this for everything
What is the occult about it?
about television. So
Hmm.
one of the things with television in his day, it was still digital televisions. I think are a bit different because the media is a different mode. That the dot tracing televisions were you you were it was actually a fragmented image that like dogs couldn't see
Yeah.
them because they didn't.
Oh, huh. I didn't know
The
that.
dogs can watch high definition, but they couldn't see all they see faster than we do, and so they just see noise.
Mm.
Whereas the televisions we had growing up, right, were the dot moving kind of thing. And so McLuhan, and they're also like indefinite images and stuff. And so McLuhan thought about them as you had to do a lot more processing watching them to make it
Mm.
resolve as an image than, for example, film, which was very crisp images, but
Right.
projected in series, right?
Got it.
Okay, so television, even so, like television is using a lot of movies, but it as a medium, it's actually different because it's technological base is different, just as
So,
manuscript is
so
different from print.
yeah, your subconscious brain is interacting with the television images, not
Right,
your conscious brain.
right.
Yeah, I could. Okay, so it's a bit like mesmerizing.
Yes, yes,
Got it.
yes. And that somehow he was also thinking about the way the light came from the box and fell on you, right? So
Hmm.
it's projecting onto you.
Yeah. That's an interesting observation. Yes, it literally imprints on you, literally and figuratively.
This is what McLuhan says happened with the transition from manuscript to print. And in fact, in his version of things, why we lost the enchantment. You ready?
As I'll ever be.
Okay. The entire hour and a half has been leading up to this quote. Okay. Um, in the Middle Ages, oh, to understand, McLuhan was actually a graduate student in Cambridge at the same time that Lewis and Tolkien were teaching in
Hmm,
Oxford.
that's
So
cool.
this is actually he's utterly contemporary with Lewis and Tolkien, and runs parallel to them. Interestingly, since nobody knew what he'd written in his dissertation until it came out after he died, right? So
Hmm.
there's 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 always this kind of missing element to the mystery. Okay, what did I have in my next picture? Yes, here we'll have Christ as creator, right? Which is this is the better image to go with this passage. Okay. Um, In the Middle Ages, the usual practice, continued since antiquity, was to employ multi level causality as interpretation of the book of nature, and multi level exegesis as interpretation of the book of scripture. In both systems, the levels were resonant and simultaneous, and the two books formed an acoustically structured double plot, like wave and particle,
Hmm.
each served as ground for the other. With the final advent of print and visual space, the resonance was stilled. The double plot structure had always been regarded as both metamorphic and etiological, as revealing form and formal causality, as, for example, in the Cosmographia of Bernardus Silvestris. Paradoxically, causality was banished in the Renaissance as unscientific, and only sequential efficient cause remained, as Mario Bunge relates. Okay, so book talking about him. I'm going to go back over all this. Don't worry. Okay, so, um, okay, Mario Bunge relates, quote, on causality. The Aristotelian teaching of causes lasted in the official Western culture until the Renaissance. When modern science was born, formal and final causes were left aside as standing beyond the reach of experiment, and material causes were taken for granted in connection with all natural happenings, though with a definitely non Aristotelian meaning, since in the modern worldview, matter is essentially the subject of change, not that out of which a change comes to be and which persists. Hence, of the four Aristotelian causes, only the efficient cause was regarded as worthy of scientific research. Shall we unpack all of it?
They cut off half their brain.
Well, yes.
Look
And
if I can't observe it, I'm not going to even think about it. That's obscenely short-sighted.
right, but McLuhan's argument is it's because of print. Okay. So
Ah,
this is
okay, go on. I'll
right
listen.
now what I'm showing is manuscript, right? So we're in the
Yeah,
manuscript world. In the manuscript world, which is the world, and I would say this, it's what Harrington and Morello and all of everybody out there, everybody, if you're listening, please, hopefully you're listening to me in the internet. Everybody out there who wants to go back to this enchanted medieval vision, got to understand this. Wants this resonance, right? We want the world in which both the book of nature, and that's why Harrington was taken with the books on the plants, right?
yeah, that sounds like a really good one too.
Yeah, it fits with our obsession on color, which is what I'd hope to get to tonight, but I got stuck on trying to get everybody to be like super hyper aware of the fact that
She
you
has to deal with Slowy.
you,
Just
you
give her
live in
give her some
books.
slack.
Hey,
Sorry.
my life is me. I'm perfectly aware of it. As Augustine saying, like you get this flash of understanding, and you're just intensely and terminally frustrated how
All right.
slowly it takes to explain everything. I've been trying to explain this for decades, right? I told you I read this as carded image in college, and I've been living in that world ever since, and
Hmm.
trying to say why is it so hard for me to show you what I see, this world that I inhabit by reading all these books. and that you
Be-
can't see unless you've read all the same books I
right.
have,
That's why,
which is very
because
frustrating,
yeah, you're talking to
right?
people who didn't, and even your students, by the time they come to you as maybe freshmen, they have not been steeped in the same types of books that, students of their age would have been 500 years ago. So they don't know a lot.
Well, they never did, right? That's it's like anybody. My colleagues have been complaining my entire career. It's like, oh, people don't know scripture anymore. We used to be able to assume that they knew Genesis, and I'm like, Let if only that was what was miss. That was all that was missing, right? This is
Yeah,
actually an
right.
illustration of Genesis. Oh wait, no, I here's the other side of that page with the Genesis. Uh,
Mhm.
yes, that what we want is we want the world that Lewis and Tolkien tried to get their students to see by reading lots and lots of these old books, so that you at least have the same stories in your head.
Right. And this is similar to when we were discussing Bleak House a couple of months back.
Yes,
Is that their students are reading this and they have no context whatsoever because it doesn't relate to anything in the current world. So they need all this background while they're reading it. And actually, they didn't even need that much background. There were a lot of similarities in the world of Bleak House with the world of today, at least with legal issues going on.
right,
But they needed some background.
right.
They needed some of it.
Yes, and so blaming them for finding that book hard to read and boring is like, you guys, one day I'm going to sit down just with, Servus Sanctus of Faenza, and we're going to read through, 18 entries on Mary, and that's out of 150. And you are going to claim that it's the most boring thing you've ever heard because you don't have the frame for why
Right.
what he's showing you is exquisitely gorgeous.
Mm.
So we're all complaining that we don't have access to that world anymore because people aren't reading the books. And trust me, I mean, it's like I hope I'm gonna like I'm gonna bore you to death in this argument. If I hear anybody saying yet again, oh, people don't read, I'm like, I know you didn't do the homework that I gave you either.
Yeah.
Right? How many books in my lists have you read? Do not come to me and say, oh, people don't X, Y, or Z until you've tried to read these libraries and and recognized you can't, right? It's like and even Lewis with his discarded image is trying to give you the short version. Like discarded image, like if you're gonna sneer, I'm gonna go back to this.
He did a good job.
If you're going to
Like,
sneer at everybody thinking, once you read Lewis's discarded image, you know what the medieval worldview was, right? One of the guys that I've been watching on YouTube to like learn how to do better videos, which he's way better than we are because he's younger. Cole Hastings. I was watching one of his today talking about how um, he ended up referencing Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which seems to keep coming up. I keep seeing book that you guys have never heard of, but you didn't know I knew existed because I read some of Kahneman's papers before the book came out, and I never read the book. Blah blah blah. It's cognitive science. Anyway, Cole, bless his heart, hadn't read the book. Oh, but he'd read this summary version in the app that his sponsor was giving. So, and I'm sitting there going, horror of horrors. He's only read the summary. And he's using it to, talk about how you need to exercise both your fast thinking and your slow thinking by doing different kinds of exercises, and that will cure you of the internet. I'm like, no, you've only
no,
read the summary.
no. So yeah, the discarded image, when you read it, the only thing you're going to learn, and you'll learn it well, is that there's a whole bunch of things that you should know in order to understand literature that has been written.
Right.
That's You're not going to learn those things. You're going to learn that those things exist,
Basically,
that these writers
yes.
exist.
See, now you're happy you did the homework, so you can tell them
Yes.
authoritatively. Will reading a summary of other books, summarizing other books, is not going to magically turn you into a medieval Christian.
No,
It's not going to happen.
no. But you will learn that they do exist and that
Yes.
there's these books that you can read about them.
Well, and then I mean, so this is it's kind of this longing that we have. Okay, so we should go back to what you actually understand way quicker than you realize, and you're helping me slow it down so that everybody else does too. You
I
you
want to
you
quote this. I'm helping her to slow it down. Yes. I'm sorry.
am
I
I
found that
was
funny.
so
No,
what's
she's right. I'm way slower than her. This is her world.
But
but
what's funny is when
an interesting one.
I read something like I'm reading Tolkien's, commentary on Beowulf, and I'm just so jealous that he gets to go through. It's like his lectures were like on one word. Right? I would love to
Yeah,
get to, it's like I have such scholar envy reading, real proper philological
yeah, that's
analysis, footnotes that, the one line of text swimming on a sea. That's scholarship, right? Biblical
cool.
scholarship that does nothing but talk about other biblical scholarship.
Yeah,
Footnote envy. You should be able to see the text for the footnotes.
footnote envy.
I've lost. I'm in fantasy land right now, thinking it was like, couldn't you just read the references and the hyperlinks, and you'll never come out of that rabbit hole, right? Once you start down the path of who wrote, how many Tolkien seems to have known all of this, right? How many other places this one word showed up, and therefore what it could possibly mean, because it's only in these two places, and therefore it can't possibly mean this. I'm like, how do you know that? And of course,
I absolutely dig that kind of stuff.
they'd read the, library or the shelves of books on. You can actually, I think, read all of the Old English that survives. Um, and they'd analyzed it, and all the language model stuff that can do word frequency and stuff like that. I don't know whether they would liked it or found it horrifying, right? Because it was the thing that they could do. You've read yourself into all of this, and even then, even now, 50 how many years into reading this, I know how far it's like this constant talk about fairy, right? This constantly receding world that you can kind of half glimpse because you're looking at this manuscript.
Oh, yeah, that's
And it
neat.
was this
It's a window.
whole, yes, this whole world that went into this artist being able to make this painting of God creating the world.
Hmm.
Oops, I'll go back to that one. Here's God creating the world, right? In this beautiful manuscript with all I've seen that. This is my photograph of this manuscript from the Getty exhibit. The book has got to be like pounds and pounds and pounds of gold.
Oh,
On the parchment itself is, moderately heavy for, compared to paper sometimes, but the
hmm.
gold leaf on this book is just, and it's reflecting back constantly. Here you are, and here is McLuhan understanding that phenomenon of, in the medieval world, the book of nature, the world out there that you're experiencing outside of your book, is constantly reflecting the book of scripture and vice versa, right? The figure ground flip back and forth constantly. And that this is what my next picture was about, that the primary image that you take, the primary um, mode that you need in order to understand what it's like to be in this media is the mirror. And medieval books are constantly calling themselves mirrors, right? There's a 4-part um, set that uh, it's by Vincent of Beauvais, although it's not all by him. The Moralium is probably not his, but the mirror of history, the mirror of nature, the mirror of morality, and I'm forgetting what the other one is. Um, Emil Mall used it for his Gothic art to show you what you're seeing in the cathedrals. Mirrors, right? And this is from this wonderful 15th century painting where the creator is holding the globe, and you see his hand reflected in the globe, which made the globe.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
that is skill. That is real skill.
and
Yeah.
and this desire, it's like you went this world of books that Lewis is trying to show you how to get inside of by giving you summaries so that you can have the sense of being in this world of books that you can actually only get in by being in the world of books, is itself a creature showing the creator making it. And that this what McLuhan calls this acoustically structured, he thinks of the manuscript world both as mosaic, which is why in fact we are the Mosaic Ark at the top level, right? That we recognize ourselves in this media experience of the internet as retrieving the medieval, because we learned that from Mark Stallman, who you can hear us talk to last year.
Hmm.
The digital, just as McLuhan's saying, the media enhances something and obsolesces something else, but retrieves, right? That one of the things that seems to be happening, I think this is happening, Mary Harrington is picking up on this. We're retrieving the medieval by way of being in the internet, which is very interesting to consider. But we're retrieving it from two layers, right? For the radio and the television, the electric, but also from the world of print. And it was the world of print, as far as McLuhan was concerned, that wrecked this resonance between the book of nature and the book of scripture.
See, I can't wrap my head around that. I don't see how it would have, since the idea of writing ideas down into a book is to spread them far and wide, and the printing press helped to do that. How could it have destroyed the information it was trying to distribute?
Well, I mean, if you consider, are you, whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable with the ebook distribution?
What do you, I'm not comfortable in the way the authors are getting screwed over.
Well, yeah, commercial.
That's something different. But the ebook distribution, I don't think they've quite perfected it yet. I keep seeing lots of mistakes. It's less. I mean, it's less pleasant to hold and to look at an electronic book than a real physical book.
Right.
But that might just be a personal preference.
Well, so McLuhan would say there's, I mean, what's interesting in manuscript studies for us, right? The medieval scholarship has gotten, very much on board with this idea that there's things in the manuscript books that aren't anywhere available in a copy of it.
Really, like what?
Well, I mean, the experience of the book as such. I mean, I'm talking about the gold and the weight and the size and things
Oh,
like
I
that.
experienced that thing. I've only ever seen one in person,
Right.
and it was amazing. But I thought maybe that was just my own personal reaction to it as a total like archaeology and history geek. So
No,
I didn't.
this is we talked about this before. The Buckle pointing out that we have all these picture paintings or beautiful books like this one that you see replicas of, like me wanting to say, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, I'm there, I'm seeing the book that all the other books are referencing, right? You're
yeah,
seeing the object that all of the replications are referencing. Like, seeing this actual manuscript was hugely different from even having, I've forgotten the Biblia Moralisée. This one's a different one from this one. Did I have a on my wall that you can't see behind me because I'm cut it off. But I have a replica image from the manuscript. It's still better seeing the actual manuscript, right? That we are responding. McLuhan's right that our media response is at something other than simply an information level.
right. I
It's
mean, that
not
is,
just the information.
yeah, that would be flat, right? It's a flat picture of it, and so it triggers your memory of seeing the real thing in person. So it's good in that way. But if you had a choice between the real thing and the print, obviously you'd want the real thing. I say obviously, but again, I'm still stuck on the possibility that maybe that's just a me thing.
No, it's not just a you thing, because that's what people are upset about, feeling like nothing's real anymore.
But okay, so they don't actually understand what they mean by that. They just feel it.
Right. They feel it.
Okay.
They feel it.
I guess I don't, it's myself that I don't understand then.
You don't.
I don't. Why am I having that kind of reaction to a real thing other than just, well, to me, it's like, it's a physical connection to somebody that was standing on the earth and breathing the same air and looking at the same stars I was like, 1500 years ago. That's amazing to me, but that's where it ends. That amazement.
Because, well, so the medieval, this is what I'd say, this is what we're, okay, so one, this is what we're trying to recover in the way that we're writing our poetry. So I force you through, if we're going to write, if we're going to write a stanza about a microscope, we have to, I mean, would it be great if we could like go to the science museums and look at them? Right?
I would love to do that.
The more that we're writing,
But do I need to?
Yeah, well, yes, right. In the sense, we have to know how they're in what we're writing right now, how they make the lenses for the microscopes. We watch a
Yeah.
video of that. We can
Mm-hmm.
that there's that constant desire to be further and further in the reality, which is what Harrington's pointing to, what's Morella's pointing to, what's the where the godlings are coming from. All of this desire to be in resonance. And the medieval imagery was great harmony, right? This is the,
Yeah.
and this
Th-
is certainly something that's coming out in the 17th century books that we're looking at that are like losing this worldview, the alchemical vision of things that is
mhm.
getting lost. That
Right.
the what the old, the discarded image had was this sense of everything being in connection, and including, I just learned this from something that I'm not going to get to because I talked myself out of time again. I always think I don't have enough material, and then we talk for 2 hours. Uh, that even colors and sound were related to each other, which is great, right? We've been looking at the ways in
Yes.
which the animals and plants go into the making the colors, and so a color is somehow also a connection with that
Well, it
source.
has its own frequency,
Yes,
right? Color does. It has a real physical frequency.
but this is what McLuhan was saying with Lost, right? When you start printing things. Now this is his, uh, controversial argument about what print does to people's thinking. But one, he says it makes it all very linear, and it does in the sense that the reason you have to have that discipline to read is you have to be following the text. Right,
Hmm.
scrolling, skimming like this on your phone is a different physical activity than moving your eyes on a line of text. It's
Yeah.
also, books are, I mean, I can feel, I it's funny that I spend so much of my time reading, and then if you are not a writer, you may not actually properly appreciate how alienating books are.
Mm.
If you enjoy reading them, and have done the imaginative work to get yourself inside and to pay attention to the words and things like that, why are books so hard to write?
Why are books so hard to write?
Yeah.
Are you thinking why are they hard to come up with creative ideas?
Nope.
No. Then I don't know.
Because you're not there. Because you are stripping your soul, rendering it into, I mean, in our alphabetic context, letters, rendering those, words into something that can only carry some slim part. Why do people? I mean, it's like people end up with fights with each other on the internet and then invent emojis so they can like modify the words sufficiently. You have none of that in writing. Writing a book means, and this, it took me a while to realize this. Like, I like talking on the internet. I like talking with you guys. I like being able to move my body and flail my hand. My books are falling off my lap again. Flail my hands around and use the gestures of my physical self with the layers of things that come with the sound of my voice and stuff. All of this is not in the transcript that YouTube is going to generate off of what I just did,
Yeah.
right? And the thing about writing a book is, you're not there, right? This feels like, oh, we're in McLuhan's presence. No, we're in this, to get that perfect, wonderful paragraph of joy, and he had to sit down. I'm trying to describe what it is for me, the writing, and realizing why it's so alienating. Um, you can't sit there with the person reading and correct their misunderstandings as you go along, can you? Once the
No.
book is out there and it's just out there by itself to be read, you have to have set everything up in exactly the right order with exactly this right logical, structuring of ideas. It's a magnificently alienating way of communication.
And people are still going to maybe take something out of it that you didn't intend,
I,
good or bad.
Even at top level, it's like that's so far down the, like, to consider it. This is why people find reading hard. It's actually so abstracted from our face to face human communication. It's amazing we do it at all.
Hmm.
We had something on saving the appearances, but I want to get to the next idea. Forget all of that. Forget all of the saving. We'll come back to the saving the appearances. So, who's in the simulation anyway?
I was thinking of virtual reality as you were speaking a couple of minutes ago.
Very
I said
good.
this is what's driving them. This is what's driving the creators to make that because they're so sure people are gonna, and I think they're right, be completely addicted to it. But because it gives them a 3D world back to go with their internet and game playing
Well,
digital.
okay, but what you're worried about is it's actually stripped down and it's not real.
Yeah, Yeah, it's not real.
Our
It's
books,
virtual.
our books, our books real.
What do you, the stories, the thoughts, the ink on the page, the dead trees.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is okay. So everybody knows that, in what is it? Oh, golly, now I've forgotten what it's called. The Truman Show, right? So we
Yeah,
find out, the true man is living in a simulation, although it's acted for him by all this cast, right? And he's the
right.
only one that's real. Jim Carrey character. He's the only one that's real, but he's surrounded by people that are acting and pretending to be their friends and being fed their lines by the director. And he thinks it's this. Well, although in order to have drama, they've had to like pretend kill his father. Sorry, spoiler alert. It's an old movie. Um,
It's an old movie. It's a really good one, though.
right, but it's the what you're just describing is the virtual reality. It's like okay, the virtual reality would be saying none of this around you is real, right? You
Yeah.
completely tricked your brain into believing that that world that is visually available to you and maybe acoustically available to you by electronic stimulated signals is in fact a real world.
So you brought up scrolling a few minutes ago,
Mm,
and you said, when it's very difficult to actually sit on the page and your eyes go like this, and maybe your fingers also like this too if you're speed reading like
right.
that. And scrolling is the exact opposite. You're staying completely still, and the screen's doing this.
I
The
think that
screen's going
yeah,
up and down.
well, everybody's gotten used to reading electronic books or um how many times do you try to expand a book? Right? It's like you're looking at a picture in a book. Wait, why won't it expand? Why can I zoom in?
And then it zooms in too much.
No, 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 no. But I
I
mean,
have
if you're
that
reading,
problem.
if you so Hammond has a lot of pictures in her book, right? And they're very beautifully um, reproduced. Right here's this, right.
Oh,
But
right.
wouldn't you like to get in closer and make it expand? It won't.
Oh, that physical book.
Right. So
Oh,
which is more real? This single printed version of it, or the one that I can zoom in on, or the one that's the size of the book that it actually is, or that they're always stripped out, and we're saying we're upset with the idea that virtual reality with the goggles is going to strip people's experience out, and we think this is a way to the Middle Ages.
well, it is in that you're using the same method of reading that they did,
No, we're
not
not.
digital.
That's the
Sure
thing.
you
We
are.
really aren't.
Think on a page.
No, one because they tended to their reading experience on manuscripts is different from ours on print, for sure.
How?
Um, it's well, one, the manuscripts are typically written with abbreviations, which makes it hard for the first thing you learn in graduate school is how to read like where the missing M's are because there are lines over them and such. Um,
Mm.
it's a different kind of physical attention that you need to read the handwriting as opposed to the mechanical print. And I
Yeah,
think
it's less discipline needed.
for the handwriting,
No, for the print.
for the print,
Yeah, yeah.
they do much more imaginative things with page layout and color and design than early printed books did. I mean, printed books they try to replicate some of the manuscripts features, but manuscripts because they're very dynamic and you can add to them and change them and cross-reference them in ways that books when they were mechanically printed became very like rigid, like literally rigid because they're made in frames, the
Hmm.
typeset and things like that. Um, you can interact. I mean, that people would interact with manuscript books in ways that we don't. We write on your books as a printed thing, but the whole sort of reading experience is different. Um, it's similarly different between a digital book and a printed book. Even though, like you'd say, the words are the same, why would it be different? Why would my experience be different? Well, everybody's choosing to read whether read print books or ebooks for reasons, right? And it's not because the text is is different. The text can be exactly the same and the reading is still different.
Yeah, but I don't know why.
We don't know why. This is why McLuhan is so
Yeah.
mystical and cool, right? Because he's right. There's something different. But we'd say, so Truman Show's reality was acted for him, but fake, right? The
Hmm.
actual um, emotional interactions with the people, the reality of his life, the coming and going of the characters, and it's all completely not real, right?
Yeah.
And then with the Matrix, it's submerged even further, right? Saying that our own brains are attached to this computer, which is showing us nothing but code. And to get out of that, we have to recognize ourselves within this code, this simulated
Yes.
world that um, doesn't have any attachment to our physical engagement.
Right.
And yet we're perfectly okay, going back to the manuscript image of the four elements here, with the idea that Lewis is giving us, saying that this medieval worldview, which we want magically to re-inhabit, that will have mystical, resonances, as Morello is describing them, is no longer. I'm trying to stay with my microphone while I'm looking for my books. Um, that because, as McLuhan said, the medieval world has this acoustic resonance between the book of nature and the book of scripture, which we've lost. And Morello is saying modernity is, the mind is hexed with abstractionism, rationalism, scientism, mechanization. Those are things that happen in your head, right? And that you get from reading lots of books. We are wanting to go back to this world in which their entire worldview, as Lewis claims, was made through books. Well, Lewis isn't actually, I don't know if Lewis is actually thinking of the manuscripts as dynamically as McLuhan was,
Yeah. Maybe.
because he's not,
I
right?
don't
He
know.
doesn't,
Yeah.
Lewis points to nothing of the actual books,
No, he's pointing to the fact that they were books that these
just like
ideas came from.
his printed
Yeah.
ones in his print library.
Right.
Now, the interest, okay, so here we have John Abrissi's making confessions. Naughty secret. I once passed an English exam at school by seeing Jane Eyre the movie rather than reading the book.
No, I've done that before too with other topics.
And we have current events, right? Current events coming into our dynamic live improv. Don't you know this actually matters? Cool media event. Trump said that today about Putin face to face. A meeting is better than media communication and even phone conversations. Yes, right?
Yeah.
It actually matters that Putin and Trump are meeting, or are they finished now? Met in person in Alaska today.
When he
That's
shook
a really
hands
good
with
example.
shook hands with Putin, people have talked about this about Trump before. The way he shakes hands, he gets in really close. He grabs your hand. It's really personal. He pulls you in, shakes it really strong. He wants that face to face, really close up.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
that there's something else there. I'm gonna go back to there we go. There's something else there that all when and this, I mean, happily, if you start recognizing what we're hungering for is, of course, unmediated. Haha, see what I did there? Although we can't, right? We're always mediating our experience with each other through language, unless it's touch, right? And then touch is like even
Hmm.
maybe it's like we want touch. We go the kids say touch grass, right? Get outside, touch
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Stop being simply in this mediated environment. But books are a mediated environment too, and that is the you know we've got the thumbnail on this one, or will be, spot the simulation. Is it the
Hmm.
library or is it the matrix? Exactly what are you hungering for when you want to go back to a world that's you reading? You still need to
So
touch grass.
understanding the natural world means being in it, and digital is not natural.
Well, neither is the book.
But a manuscript is. A book's physical,
Well,
at least.
but I think the funny thing is I think we, those of us who want something, my invitation here is, okay, so one of the things that Lewis completely gets wrong, he talks about saving the appearances. And he's saying that what happens when people are studying, and this is where I was back with the ecliptics. I'll go back there, right? That the way in which the 17th century, because of the telescope, makes fun of the medieval worldview is they say, oh well, their model was dumb because they needed all these epicycles to account for the way in which they saw the planets moving in the sky.
Mhm.
Who's more honest here, right? So the saving the appearances means the model fits with what we see. We need to figure out a model that actually fits with the observations. They were making observations. It's a complete and utter
Yes.
and malicious Enlightenment lie to claim that the previous uh, description model had no base, and you kept saying that it's based on observations. It's constantly based on observations. They all have
Yeah.
astrolabes. They're following. They knew the night sky incredibly well. What they're trying
Hmm.
to figure out is a description, a model that fits with what they see. Now, the only
Right.
reason that we think a simpler model is better is because of Occam. And he says, oh, you should make a model that, doesn't add, further elaboration, but it's still just a model. That's
Hmm.
what Hans was talking about 2 weeks ago, that his model with fields and energy is a better model than figure ground wave particle, but it's a
Hmm.
model. It's still a model. And
Right.
it's a modeling of what you observe with an effort at description based on your ability to bring in as much of your observation as you possibly can.
Well, the Enlightenment was unique in one aspect. I don't think anybody in human history had ever tried to, like, completely, up until then, to completely eliminate all other knowledge that came before them and not use it.
Well, they sort of didn't, but they sneered a
No,
lot.
I mean,
Yeah,
they're
they
year zero,
yes, they year zeroed themselves. They sneered a lot at
Yeah.
the previous
Well, the
element.
sneering is what did the work for them, right? People have a terrible fear of being embarrassed, especially about what they do and don't know.
Yes. Yes. That fear of being embarrassed about knowledge. That's interesting. So one, the 18th century makes the encyclopedias. So they do a lot of what the 13th century made a lot of encyclopedias. That's why we have things both like My Servus Sanctus, 150 Names of
Mm.
Mary, Exaltata Est Super Chorus Angelorum today, um,
Mm.
and Summa Theologica that Thomas Aquinas writes, and the mirrors that I was mentioning, Vincent Aubepé wrote. They want to describe everything in the 13th century. They love it. They think they're going to be able to make a complete
Mhm.
description of everything, which is why with Lewis saying, this model of everything, everything's going to fit together. Well, they try to do the
Yeah.
same thing in the 17th and 18th centuries too, right? They've changed their model, and they're convinced their model is true and everybody else's model is dumb.
Speaking of dumb, yeah, the 19th century also gave us the concept of the unquestionable missing link in evolution. It's like it's just missing. Just accept it.
She
Don't
Casey is such a
don't
great
question.
student. Yes, this is it, right? And I think this is the thing to hang your hat on by the end of this conversation. So Lewis says we need to read old books because they show us our own assumptions, right? One of the fascinating things that is happening with the digital, with the internet, with the rupture that it's creating, so that we see all the assumptions that we had with the print, and we're more aware of them, and we're sad that we're losing that world that, I mean, I get it. I grew up in the book reading world of, I don't read as many novels, but I'd stopped reading novels when I was uh late 30s, mid 30s. I read a lot of novels as I was, but then they just all started seeming fake to me, and so I didn't enjoy them as much. But the yeah, if you read too much, you realize all of the artifice that goes into people's stories. And you don't like it anymore because, oh wait, she gets that detail wrong. I'm broken, right? I can't stay. I can't. I
Oh,
can't.
don't read historical novels.
I can't read historical novels anymore. They all sound fake to me. They all sound like they're living in their moment. They're working with their assumptions. I don't care how many of your, clothing hairstyle things you get absolutely exquisitely right. I feel your assumptions. I can't read. It's like you've got our people of our time in fancy dress, and you're creating epicycles for them. Yeah, that we're becoming aware, thanks to the internet, of the world that we lost. But ironically, we're also becoming, and I think this is the for me the hopeful thing is, the retrieval of the medieval means that we're looking back, we're looking for a reintegration of the world. That every the people, it's like very hopeful and happy, right? Everything pointing to all this. We want to see the way things resonate again. We want to have material and efficient. These are the four Aristotelian causes, right? Material, efficient, formal, and final causes. We want all four causes back. We don't want just efficient causes. We don't want just material causes. We want a why and a beauty to it all. And the internet is giving us that by it thrusting into our awareness the degree of artifice that the book world gave us.
Not quite sure I understand that part. Slowly.
The modernity was the print world. That's what McLuhan was. McLuhan was accused of disliking print, and he's like, no, no, no. I'm just showing you what it did, right, or what's happening.
Okay.
McLuhan gave us this image of our mosaic, right, that the acoustic electronic world that he found himself in, but I think even more so with the digital, that we are in this constant this constant referencing in webs, and we in the internet. It's like I'm sitting here in this vast network of books, right? But as we're talking, I can network all of the other things that we're in contact with. The world feels different because we all just saw the planes fly over, wherever they met in Alaska, and
Right.
and somebody was saying, 190,000 people were tracking Putin's plane as he was
Yeah, I saw
flying
that
in.
too.
You're like, that's it's a horror in some ways, because we're seeing images of terrible things that are happening, but we're also seeing, more little snippets of stuff constantly from everywhere else, and having to put all that together as you read it in your social media feed, right? You're scrolling, and
Yeah,
the algorithms
you're
are
putting them
frustrating because
right.
they feed you the same thing constantly, but you're scrolling and having to assemble this big puzzle constantly.
I see. Yeah.
And so we're more aware of the artificiality of the world that the book media created. And the artificiality that McLuhan points to is it came with the scientific revolution, right? It came with the thought that you could write all, can describe all these causes and effects, like Hooke with his microscope, right? I can describe to you all
Hmm.
these things that using my instrumental sense extender, the microscope, I can actually see now. And ironically, that meant for him, and now we don't have to worry about why anymore. But we still ended up with why, because
Yes.
that's where evolution came from, right? The myths come back in the
Yeah.
back door every time.
Right. Exactly. So they just threw everything else out and started at year zero and said, "Oh, those silly people! I can't believe that they believe those things." Actually, you came from monkeys, and you can see an unbroken line. Well, it's not unbroken. It's a little break right here. Just ignore that right now.
Right,
Unbroken line of evolution from monkey to you, or actually from protoplasm to you.
right.
And yeah, they were creating an entire mythology over it, and
Which
it's still being taught.
we can now see as mythological because we're in a new it's a new world of assumptions because of the new media that we're participating with that are extending our ability.
What do you think the assumption is?
Now,
For an
what are our
example.
assumptions
Yeah.
now? Well, that's the thing. It's like we need to keep reading the old books and studying the old media, because otherwise we won't be as aware of what we're doing. But what do I think? Which assumptions?
Well, it's you said you want to be aware of what we're doing. Everybody has been looking at the internet and seeing the artifice, meaning how I'm assuming you mean how the news stories are being constructed because they're having to put them together themselves
We're more
from
aware of
snippets
that
here
now
and
for
there.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're more aware, and I guess the thing that really illustrated this best was a couple of years ago, somebody put together a mosaic of local news stations reading a news report and synced them. And there was like literally like 100 of them saying the exact same words. So it was clear they were all following a script. So if you mean the artifice like that, like this is the artificial structure that they're building here. That was a good example. It even looked like building blocks. So that was kind of cool.
And
But
that's showing that people become much more aware of what television was doing,
yeah,
right?
right.
That thanks to the internet we can so this is interesting. McLuhan works best in binary terms like retrieve the old and but the problem is we've got multiple media layers from language itself through manuscript. I mean, you could start back with carvings on rocks, right? But manuscript to print to electronic to digital. So to say the digital is obsolescing the electronic in a lot of ways, which then
Hmm.
means it's also retrieving it's retrieving print in interesting ways, but it's also retrieving some of the reflective qualities of the manuscript culture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Pavel Durov had an interesting message today on his Telegram channel. Somebody was giving a message of thank you for putting Telegram together or something like that. And he mentioned that he was writing this in a different language, but it was appearing as English to anybody who was an English speaker and had English designated as a language they're going to be reading Telegram. And it's like automatic instant translation, a feature that it had. And I'm
Wow.
thinking, how do I know he actually said that? You're telling me he's, no, trust me, he's doing this in another language. It's instantly translated into English, not only English, but English that and any American could immediately understand the cadence of. It's like it didn't sound broken. It didn't sound. There was no unusual vocabulary, awkward vocabulary being used. It just sounded like average generic American talk. But I don't know. I know it only because he told me so.
So, I mean, this when the translators extend our ability to communicate with each other, and then they're going to
So I'm
because
told.
what?
So I'm told.
So,
That's
well,
my point. I don't know.
they're going, they're going to obsolesce something, and we're going to lose something as well, right? And
You need human translators.
yeah, that's what McLuhan would point out that the new media comes in and obsolesces something, which is then lost, and that is and the thing is once it's obsolesced completely nobody even knows what they're missing, right? I'm trying to explain to you badly what it's like reading a manuscript, and you're saying but it's a book, isn't it? Right? And so
Yeah,
and
but
people would say well
yeah,
but why do you need a translator? And it's like it's just there, right? Why and this of course the younger people come in and they don't have the previous experiences, and so they're like I mean, as teachers, we're saying, well, you need to look at this thing from the previous time because it will help you see yourself better, too. Because otherwise, you have no contrast with
well,
the
it
ground
makes
and the
perfect
assumptions
sense.
that you're in.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to say you need to see the manuscript in person because they're larger. There's a lot of stuff written in the margins.
Right.
Why were they writing them in the margins? That's an interesting question in and of itself. So yeah, you'll get a more complete picture of the specific point in time where this manuscript was written. So it's a little bit more than the information they meant to transmit on the page. So there's extra information in there. I guess I can see it that way. But the main body of the text, if it's all included in the book, yeah, you'll get a lesser version of, but you'll get what the manuscript was written for to begin with.
So you and I are going to be at BaseCon soon. I'm bringing the facsimile I showed in Italy. You're going to see it, and then you're going to be
Yay! The big
persuaded
scroll.
persuaded that what you just said is experientially inaccurate.
Experientially, she's being so polite, isn't she? It's like, oh, she's so slow. It's okay.
No, no, no,
Me,
no,
not
no,
you.
no, no. It's you're honest, right? And that's like this is the honest problem of where the simulation, where the you know media creates simulations. That's my point.
Right,
And
right. This could like this,
the books
like the
do it
language.
just as much as the Matrix version of the computer, as the Truman Show, as Lewis imagining himself into this bookish world. We're we're we live in a sim. It's like, curiously enough, our imaginations are constantly creating what, from another perspective, are complete fantasies. Fairy is this thing that we constantly reinvent for ourselves, and seeing the fear and the heart. It's like, your nose is always in a book. Why don't you get outside and play?
It's like I'm playing up here, right?
Right. So
And
what?
it's always very dissatisfying to go into the woods and not find the fairies. So that's, they're always in the book.
Okay, now John Abrisi saying, I experienced my first earthquake this morning. Yes, we had a 5.6 earthquake here in Brisbane this morning. I thought it was
Wow.
someone moving material outside. It's true. Every day is a new adventure. Yes, that's what I juxtaposed the Truman Show and the Matrix image here, and then what I saw was blue and green, right? Which put me in mind of the color problem, which is one of the things that we're playing with a lot in writing Draco Chemicus right now, because we're looking at the red dye imagery and the use of the red dye and stuff, and of course getting to Newton with his prism and what's really happening in the color spectrum, right? Well, what we
Right.
think is, quote, really happening with a rainbow is the 7 colors, 7 or 8, how many, red, I can't do that Newton described as having been in his prism. But we established, maybe last time, maybe the time before, that the reason Newton saw 7 is because he was looking for the numbers of the planets, and
Ah.
or the days of the week or something like that. He was doing a mystical thing with the number. So his reality was completely conditioned by that imaginary world he was living in that had significance in the number 7, which is
Mm.
different from, for example, well, here's an image of angels falling from heaven. Different from the way in which medieval Christians would see these colors, right? The blue and the green, because they'd see it within the creation. I'm trying to get to my rainbow image here. So that rainbows in medieval manuscripts tend to be 2 colors or 3 colors, right? There's like red on top and green on the bottom with white in the middle, or like mainly green.
Mm.
And that made me reflect. I thought I had my pictures all in the great order. 2 really excellent essays out there on Substack right now. One, Robert Kimes, and the other, um, is Sasha Chaito. Robert was talking about green, Sasha was talking about blue, and both saying how our experience of these colors, even though it's like our eyes haven't changed, right? Our sense
Hmm.
of what the colors are shaped by our language using them, not whether we can see them or not. Chaito was talking about how it's completely inaccurate to say Greeks couldn't see blue because of the wine dark sea, which was used as an insult in the 19th century to say those primitive Greeks, they couldn't see,
Oh.
blue, when in fact what it was a different way of describing the play of light on the water, right?
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
the Greek images were all describing the movement of the waves and the sparkling of the light. What color is the sea anyway? Well, Robert was showing in his Via Medievalis post how, a number of images where the sea is green, right? Here's a blue whale in a green sea. Which, were medieval people blind and they couldn't see what color the sea really was? Were, Greeks blind and they couldn't see, or they had no cognitive space for describing color? We are constantly framing our reality by our descriptions and vice versa. And what's, sort of, I think, fascinating and interesting is the way, because of the internet, we're losing our ability to see some things, but in proper McLuhan fashion, we're gaining ability to see things that have been invisible for a long time to us. Just kind of hopeful.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great noticing, right? It's like, wait
It's
a
a
minute.
it's the great
Right.
noticing, and it's happening because we're here in the internet doing videos that we can have different kinds of media experiences with. You see why we try so hard. We really want to be in here with you guys, hanging out, doing the media thing. Yeah. Okay. So JC saying translation is an art, not a mere mechanical thing. Otherwise, you get those problems. Yes, and that's the thing. All of these are. I mean, translation is a real art, and the bots are going to make mistakes
Yeah.
inevitably. Just as printing, I don't know whether I've persuaded Casey yet. To get you to realize that a printed book is an incredibly aversive alien artifact, and that you can enjoy reading a book when it's stripped of all reality. And oh yes, this I'm I had I'm reading some of Sarah's stories right now, and they're really evocative and riveting.
Mm.
Why? Right? It's like it's words on a page printed. None of her, sort of imagery and visual and presence and such, like we had with her, talking with her a few weeks ago. And yet I can delude myself into thinking that it's this deep and marvelous experience. We're always abstracting out from the whole into our limited artifacts. I guess maybe that's what my Fall of Angels image is. We're all fallen out of the fullness of heaven. But I'm not sure that that means that we don't make art, because we are made in the image and likeness of our maker, as he or he is making Adam and Eve. Dressed as a pope for some reason, in purple robes, which apparently the purple becomes less accessible after the Ottomans take Constantinople. See, there's all history in whether the way we're able to do the
It's all connected.
it's
Yeah.
all connected. When did I get to the end of my pictures tonight? Let's see. I showed you the sea. I showed you the rainbow, the pattern, the mosaic, the Cosmati pavement at Westminster. This is where we're aiming.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
So that you can see the mystery and the riddle and the design and the mosaic, all from, well, reading books and some other things. Sanuaro, does the media dance? Yes, that's our problem. Framing our reality, John says. But is this observation true? Lots of people are poor writers, poor dreamers, poor imaginators. We can get better at it, right? We can train ourselves in the skills and recognize the craftsmanship. And the thing is, I hope what is clear, we can't get back to the Middle Ages. That's ridiculous. um, what we are prone to do as storytellers, as artists, as craftspeople, is want to interact with the created world. And I think that is something that I take great joy in the medieval vision, in the way McLuhan is describing it. It's like you're seeing the book of nature, you're seeing the book of scripture, and these two things in marvelous interaction give us this richness of experience that it's a high time we recovered, frankly.
Right. We weren't meant to go back to the Middle Ages,
No.
but we can learn from it. And because of media like this, more people are aware it exists. Maybe they will see these things in person one day, but they're at least aware they exist. This world exists. This world they read about in very old books.
And all of the internet's talking about it right now. Isn't it great?
Yeah.
There's so much, like, I love this medieval stuff out there. I was like, yes. Yes. Just held on
That is
long enough till
wonderful.
the media brought it to us. Take that,
Caught up, huh?
modernity. Printing press. Bah, humbug. Anyway, so do you know how long we've gone on tonight? This was a really rich one.
Uh,
We've gone on into the
Longer
stream
than
for
normal.
longer than normal, longer than normal. Anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed that, and that you are now willing to, like, make the make the super deep dive, fish like, into the green sea with us, into this world that resonates with all of this beauty and joy and craftsmanship and mystery, and that it is very much in conversation with what we're shown in scripture, but that it's this living reality that we all share with each other in as creatures of that wonderful creator of ours. So anyway, today we celebrate the assumption of his mother into heaven, and she's there with
Mhm.
him, helping us in our exercise of seeing the beauty mirrored in the creation of our Creator.
Beautiful.
We'll see you next time on the Mosaic Ark. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, get us more subscribers. We want to share this vision with everyone because it's beyond joy to be able to be here. Good night, everyone.